The words hit me like a punch to the chest. You're useless, Emily. But this time, something inside me didn't break. Instead, I smiled. And in that smile was a secret Sarah had spent 8 years trying to hide. 8 years of unpaid bills. 8 years of lies. 8 years of me quietly holding her entire life together. The question was simple. How does it feel to realize the person you've been using your whole life is finally done playing nice? My sister called me useless. I just smiled and asked, "Then who paid your rent last month? And the month before that? And the 95 months before that?" The dining room smelled like roasted turkey, sage stuffing, and the faint metallic tang of cranberry sauce straight from the can. The good stuff. The jellied kind that slides out with a wet suck and keeps the ridges. Somebody had already cracked the first bottle of cheap Cabernet, and the Browns game murmured from the living room where the kids were screaming over a fumble. It was Thanksgiving 2025. The house on East 185th Street in Cleveland looked exactly like it had every November for the last 43 years I'd been alive. And my sister, Lisa, was holding court at the far end of the table like she was on a late-night talk show and the rest of us were the live studio audience. She wore a cream cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my truck payment and boots that clicked like judgment every time she crossed her legs. Her hair was that expensive kind of blonde that requires 6 hours in a Beverly Hills salon and a colorist who charges by the syllable. She was laughing at something Uncle Bob said, head thrown back, throat exposed, the whole performance. Everyone was eating it up. Everyone always did. I had watched her from my seat, between Aunt Karen and Cousin Mark's 6-year-old, who kept trying to stick green beans up his nose. Lisa raised her glass. "To family," she said, voice honeyed and loud enough to carry over the clatter of silverware. "And to finally living the life we deserve." Glasses clinked. Someone whooped. I took a slow sip of my beer and waited. It didn't take long. The conversation drifted, as it always did, to how proud we all were of Lisa. The new content house she'd moved into in West Hollywood, the brand deals rolling in, the way she'd manifested a lease on a 2-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony that looked out over the Chateau Marmont. Nobody asked how a 39-year-old woman who hadn't called a steady job since the Obama administration could afford $4,800 a month, plus utilities and Ring camera fees. They never did. They just swallowed the fairy tale because Lisa served it with good lighting and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Then Uncle Bob, 3 glasses deep, turned to me with the same pitying look he'd been giving me since high school. "So, Dave, you still pushing boxes down at the warehouse?" "Logistics coordinator," I corrected quietly. "Same company, 22 years?" He nodded like that was tragic. Lisa let out a little laugh, tinkling, cruel. 22 years, she repeated, drawing the words out like she was tasting something spoiled. Jesus, David. Same house, same truck, same dead-end job. No wife, no kids, no life. You're just useless. You realize that, right? You're a ghost in your own story. The room went still except for the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the wet sound Mark's kid made trying to snort another green bean. Aunt Karen sucked air through her teeth. Cousin Jenny's mouth actually fell open. I felt every pair of eyes land on me like birdshot. I set my fork down. The metal rang softly against the plate. I looked straight at Lisa and smiled the way I'd practiced in the mirror for weeks. "Then who paid your rent last month? And the month before that? And the 95 months before that?" Lisa's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The room was already holding its breath. "Who do you think wired the $5,000 in September when your landlord filed the unlawful detainer? Who paid the late fees in July when you blew your rent money on Coachella VIP tickets? Who covered the security deposit when you moved into that overpriced shoebox because you needed to be in the right zip code for your brand?" Her face drained of color so fast, I thought she might pass out into the mashed potatoes. I kept going, soft, relentless. 8 years, Lisa. $2,500 on the first of every month, sometimes $3,000 when you were between opportunities, sometimes 4 when you decided you needed valet parking and bottle service to network. That was me. Not your sponsorships, not your manifesting, me. From the savings account I built by working overtime while you were posting thirst traps on a balcony I paid for. Aunt Karen whispered, "Lord have mercy." Uncle Bob's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Lisa tried to laugh it off, but it came out strangled. "You're lying. You're jealous and you're lying." "Bank of America," I said, account ending in 4471. "Want me to pull up the statements on my phone right now?" I've got screenshots going back to 2017. There's one from March 2020 when you told me you were literally going to die if you had to leave LA during lockdown. I sent $6,000 that month. You sent me a selfie in a bikini from Malibu 2 days later with the caption, "Grateful for abundance." Someone at the table let out a low whistle. Lisa's hands were shaking. The wine sloshed over the rim of her glass and stained the white tablecloth blood red. I leaned forward. "Every time you called crying about eviction notices, I paid them. Every time you said this brand deal was definitely happening next week, I believed you. Every time you told Mom, before she died, that you were killing it out there and I was the family embarrassment, I let you. Because you were my little sister. Because Dad asked me on his deathbed to look after her. Because I thought blood meant something." My voice finally cracked on the last sentence just once. Lisa stood up so fast, her chair tipped backward and crashed against the hardwood. "You petty, jealous, miserable—" "Sit down," Aunt Karen snapped, and I'd never heard her voice like that before. Lisa sat. I wasn't finished. "You want to know what useless looks like, Lisa? It looks like wiring money to someone who blocks your number the minute it clears. It looks like missing my own promotion ceremony because you had a meltdown over some guy named Tristan who ghosted you after you bought him AirPods. It looks like working Christmas Eve double shifts so you could keep your ring light and your rented Range Rover." I pulled my phone out, opened the banking app, turned the screen around so everyone could see the scheduled transfer I just canceled. Set for December 1st, now reading canceled by user. "Merry Christmas," I said. Lisa started crying, but they weren't pretty tears. They were the ugly, gulping kind that come when the mask finally rips off in public. She looked suddenly small in that cream sweater, like a kid playing dress-up. She fled the table 5 minutes later, heels clacking furiously toward the front door. Nobody stopped her. We heard her Uber pull up, tires spitting gravel, then silence. Uncle Bob cleared his throat. "Jesus, David, why didn't you ever say anything?" I shrugged. Because I thought if I kept quiet, maybe one day she'd grow up. Turns out some people only grow sideways. Aunt Karen reached over and squeezed my hand so hard her knuckles went white. "I'm proud of you, honey, and I'm sorry we didn't see it." The rest of dinner was quiet, but it was a clean kind of quiet. The food tasted better somehow. Lisa blew up my phone for weeks after that. Voicemails that started with screaming and ended with sobbing pleas. I didn't answer a single one. In January, she moved back to Cleveland after the eviction finally went through. She's living in a studio above a laundromat in Parma now, working retail at the Macy's in South Park Mall. She blocked me on everything, which is fine. I blocked her right back. I took the money I used to send her and booked a month in Portugal last spring. Sat on a cliff in the Algarve, drinking Vinho Verde, watching the Atlantic crash below, and realized I hadn't felt this light since I was 16 years old. Sometimes I still think about that Thanksgiving table, the way the overhead light caught the red wine stain spreading like blood across the tablecloth, the way Lisa's face collapsed when the truth finally landed. I don't feel guilty anymore. I feel free. And if anyone ever asks me again what I do with my life, I'll tell them the truth. I finally stopped paying for someone else's.